Hi everybody, it's Marcus Collins and we are lucky this evening to have Wenjen here with us for another Buyer's Masterclass.
Yes.
And this one is on strategies to succeed in today's competitive. We would agree it's competitive, I think, Wenjen?
Very competitive.
Challenging, we would agree it's challenging as
Very
well.
challenging.
We'll hear some stories today. And, clearly as we're in the middle of COVID, this kind of virtual housing market. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me just get myself organized. There we go. And so smart moves made here. Hopefully, this is the idea behind this seminar, to understand that this is the whole crux of it. Smart is key. Smart is key because it's really difficult to buy a house, and it's really important that when you buy a house you don't leave it to chance, and that's what we're going to talk about. We have a very structured mechanism to talk through the agenda this evening. I'll do some of it, Wenjen will do some of it. We're kind of mix of the two.
I'll move the camera a little.
There we go. So what are we going to talk about this evening? So smart decisions. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening specifically in a couple of towns, but then I'll kind of broaden it to what's happening in the larger market, 2020 as well as 2021. So even though it's not even March, as we were just saying, it's just 23rd of February today. So we will then see what we can do in terms of predicting 2021. We'll be brave.
Yes.
Why not, right? Why not? Then we'll talk about the process of buying a home, how to go about it. What do you need to think about as a buyer? What about that search? That search, most people start out very broad, then they come narrow, so we'll dig into that, and then we'll get into the mechanics of writing an offer at a high level, not too much detail. There's a lot to talk about, and we only have an hour or so this evening. And then we'll finish off with buying during COVID.
Yes, and we'll talk smart, because everything is about being smart.
Everything's about being smart. That's the whole idea. So, smart decisions. All right. So, we work on the premise that it's relatively easy to get information today, but it's much more difficult to get the analysis about that information. And so every year we produce 2 market reviews. We'd like to do more, but they're quite a lot of work. And actually, I have a couple of copies here. That's the Arlington one, and that's the Lexington one. So it goes into an awful lot of detail about what's going on in the market. I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis over the next, 15 minutes or so. But there's a lot more detail in these market reviews. They're on our website, but if you want a copy, just reach out to Wenjen. We can send you an electronic. We can also send you a paper copy too. Yep. So it's there. All the work's done for both Lexington and Arlington. So if you have any interest in those 2 towns, please reach out to us and go get a market review.
It's a good read. A bedtime reading.
It's a good bedtime read, that's right. If you like numbers, it's the place. Because I'll give you a sneak peek, it's full of graphs. So it's full of numbers, together with analysis about what's happening in the market. So lots of data there. Let's dig into some details about Arlington specifically. We thought we'd pick on Arlington. It's a good first-time home buyers town, predominantly. I'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in this town, but it's kind of a good destination, really for first-time home buyers, as well as some downsizers who perhaps haven't bought and sold for a while. So it's a good town to kind of give a perspective of what's going on. We would have thought that 2020 with COVID would have been a disastrous year, perhaps, but as you look at real estate, it fared very well. Here's the median prices for Arlington single-family homes, and as you can see, they rose relatively steady. If anything, they rose a little bit more in 2020 than they did in 2019. So the market clearly was not affected that much by COVID. It was specifically in terms of certain months, but as we look at it overall, as we can do now, as we're in February 2021, the 2020 market was a good market overall. In terms of the number of sales in Arlington, it was relatively flat. In fact, it's been declining a little bit since 2015, but it's really relatively flat, perhaps even a little bit lower in 2020 than we've seen previously. The challenge with that is that there really isn't enough inventory. There's not enough homes for today's buyers. And so what really stopped the number of sales going much higher was the fact that there just weren't that many listings. and I didn't look at how many listings there were in Arlington today, but I know yesterday I was talking to Corinne of our team, something like 5 single-family homes on the market.
Yeah, there was one more came up today.
So there we go, 6.
Yeah.
Even though it's February, we would expect low inventory. That's a very, very low number.
Yeah, and that won't be gone by after the weekend. So.
Yes, whatever comes on Thursday
Yes.
will be gone by Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
And that's really the cycle we're in right now.
Yeah.
In terms of what happened with COVID, let me kind of give you a perspective on that. What I've mapped here is 2020 sales and 2019 sales, 2020 sales, and get my year correct. The pink color is 2019, and then the blue color behind it is 2020. Now, you can't really see my cursor probably, but if I show you this flattening of the 2020 curve here, that's the impact of COVID. Kicked in probably the end of February, carried on with a very low number of homes coming on the market till sometime in early May, and then off it went again. And so really COVID, in terms of the housing market, really only lasted from late February through to May, early May timeframe, when we saw very few homes coming on the market. After that, the number of homes carried on. As you can see, at the end of the year, almost the same number of homes sold in 2019 as sold in 2020. To explain those numbers a little bit, they're a little different than what we saw previously. This is what I'm mapping here is homes going under agreement, because I want to take out that 6 weeks between coming on the market and selling. So this is, I map when they went under agreement to take out that kind of 6 weeks lag in there. So, clearly a very good year. In terms of that key metric of sale price to list price ratio, which is a good metric because it measures buyer confidence in the market. That's why we like to look at it. And as you can see, the ratio of over 100%, it dropped a little bit in 2019. If you remember back to 2019, and specifically the end of 18 and all through 19, there was the perception that there was going to be an economic downturn. And what we saw is a few more homes coming on the market than we've seen previously. Buyers being a little bit reluctant to jump into the market. This is late 18 and 19 now. And so that ratio kind of dipped down. It rose again. It was 102 on the graph. It's almost 103. But either way, that's still a high ratio. 103 means that on average, a home sold for 3% more than it came on the market for. So that's clearly a very competitive market and really a great measure of buyer confidence. That's why we map this one. So Arlington, strong market, perhaps a little less strong than 17 and 18, but still very strong. Condos, similar picture really. As you can see, here's the median prices of condos. Now it's at 665. Thinking back to single family, I suspect this year, 2021, the median price of a single family in Arlington will probably dip over $1 million. Got very close to it anyway, which is a high number for the town. Condo sales fluctuate quite a lot actually, year on year. It's not a flat curve. It does show more variability than the single family market. But overall, we actually saw a few more condos coming on the market and selling in 2020 than we saw in 2019. And that I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Cumulative sales, there was almost no impact of COVID. In fact, in that late February, May timeframe, as you can see, the gradient of that curve is the same as we saw really in 2019, maybe slightly less, but overall, it almost didn't see the effect of COVID at all. What happened though is more condos came on the market in that fall timeframe, in that September timeframe. And what's interesting is as you look at that, there was a little bit of a softening of the market in that fall market, condos now, not single family, in condos, because we got a little bit of feedback from buyers that they were somewhat reluctant to buy a home which had shared space.
Yes.
And that was kind of, but that's on the one hand, so I'm a little bit nervous to buy because of the shared space, but on the other hand, you're $300,000 to $400,000 cheaper than a single family in Arlington. So buyers were torn somewhat. Yes, I'm a little bit nervous, but I can afford essentially a condominium where perhaps I can't afford a single family. So we did see more come on, but overall, after we got that kind of bolus of homes that came on the market finished strong in 2020. That slight reluctance and specifically the hesitance in the end of 2020 brought that ratio, that magical, good metric for buyer confidence, sell price, list price ratio, down to about 101%, where it had been much higher in 2018. So we're seeing there that what's playing out is that little bit of reluctance to buy a condo where there's shared space. On the other hand, of course, it's more affordable than it is in single family, but certainly a little bit lower. And most of that reduction was in the second half of the year. First half of the year was very strong. If you map it out month by month, first half of the year was very strong. Second half of the year was somewhat weaker. Somewhat, I say, it's still 101%.
Yeah.
Just for perspective, Lexington, the next town over, it's about 99 and change. So it is still a very strong market for condos. But that's what's going on with that ratio dipping down to 101. Still competitive, but not as competitive clearly as the single family market. So kind of the big picture for 2020. We saw in Arlington anyway a similar number of listings coming on the market, irrespective of COVID. That's true of almost all towns. Couple of exceptions. Lexington, for example, saw a lot more homes coming on the market and therefore a lot more sales. But as you look in the kind of broadest sense, roughly the same number of homes coming on the market in 2020 that we saw in 2019. But there was an increase in the number of buyers in the market. And that's what really shifted from 2019 being a softening seller's market to 2020 being very much a seller's market with positive price appreciation. And there's a comment there about what I just talked about with the condo market, somewhat softening a little bit. Now, okay, that was last year. What about, what's moving forward? Let's be brave here and kind of see what we see in 2021. Even though it's only February.
Show us a crystal ball.
That's right. So, big picture, there's still a lot going on, clearly. We've still got the pandemic to play out through the rest of this year. The recession is still there. The degree to which it will hit in and will that continue over time? For example, commercial property, it's likely that it'll be a drawn-out recession for commercial property as companies and employees are somewhat reluctant to go back to work 5 days a week. So it's not fully worked itself out at this point, in my opinion. We do have a new administration. There's certainly some positive things coming out of that, so vaccinations and so on. But it's still a little unclear how long before vaccinations will get us back to normal. Although I think we're getting a bit of a clearer picture, perhaps in the fall and winter time frame. Right. We'll be, just thinking, I'm from the UK, looking at the UK, they're hoping to roll everything back by the middle of the year. I think we'll be, there or thereabouts in the US as well.
Right.
And overall, the housing market in Massachusetts fared very well, that's for sure. So in terms of 2021, if you think about it from buyers and sellers perspective, the number of sellers was static in 2020, will remain static, I think, in 2021, primarily because a seller is also a buyer. So if I'm going to sell in a town, I'm going to move somewhere else. So I have to be a buyer. It's a very competitive market, and so it's difficult to essentially buy, and therefore, in many cases, it becomes difficult to sell. So overall, we're going to see, as we saw in 2020, a static number of sellers in the market. There are a large number of buyers in the market as we kind of shift perspective to buyers now. A lot of buyers in the market. And so we've got static supply and increased demand. And so the characteristics that we saw in 2020 of a strong market will continue in 2021. There seems no reason why that would change. People working from home, continuing to work from home, need a little bit more space because they're working from home. That's where the housing market is certainly, as you come out here to the suburbs, that's what people are thinking, moving out of a relatively small condominium, perhaps in Somerville or Cambridge, into a single family. Arlington, Lexington, perhaps even further out to Acton, because I need that little bit more space, and that will continue in 2021. So static number of sellers in the market, a strong, increasing, similar number to that we saw in 2020, which was much higher than we saw previously in terms of the number of buyers. So a very positive picture for 2021.
Yes, very competitive for the buyers.
Yeah, and you were Wendy, you were telling me some stories about how competitive it is right now in a lot of different towns.
Yes, yeah. We just had one offer we put in Lincoln, and the home was mobbed pretty much. There was non-stop showing, private showing, and 8 offers in all. 5 groups waived inspections.
Okay.
And, it went way over the asking price, so
right.
Substantially way over. So it's a very competitive market, and like you say, because there's really literally no inventory,
right.
And buyers are anxious to buy now. So
that's a consequence to some extent of this time of year. Because here we are, literally it's just the 23rd of February when we're recording this.
Yeah.
And so we always expect low inventory. It will increase. My message
right.
to buyers is always don't panic. More homes will come on the market.
Yes.
They always do.
Right.
But I still think, I was thinking back to the house in Acton we brought on the market 2 weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
24 offers on that home in Acton. So now we're talking kind of way out.
Way out.
It was a nice house. It was contemporary on almost 2 acres of land. It began to tick all the boxes. And clearly 24 buyers, 21 was successful, 23 were unsuccessful. So there are still 23 buyers looking to buy a home,
Yep,
so
in that area.
That's where the competition comes in. So enough of the market. How do we go through the process of figuring out how do I buy a home?
Right.
What am I looking for? How do I kind of put some framework around starting that search?
So really, when I before we jumped into how do I start? When I get a phone call to say, hey, can you help me find a home? My first question would be why. Okay, it's very important to anchor your search on why do you need to do this, right? So that kind of give us an understanding of what we're trying to achieve. So I think last time I shared, personally, I have moved 11 times, in 20 some years. I won't disclose my age. I started moving when I was very young, and then and I had a few transactions of purchase and selling myself, of our own home, and learned a lot of lessons, from that, and wish that I had known much better back then than now.
Right.
I would have done a lot of different choices, and so I think the key is to really understand why am I doing this. So I would talk to my buyers, and they need to do this because job relocation, or because the kids are old now, they're ready to downsize, okay, or that they are deciding to start a family, or first-time home buyers, to create their own household. Or they are getting extra kid, they're growing their family, so they need more homes. So, knowing that, then the next question is understand what they're looking for. Then we go in and look at, there are 3 key elements of what's, three key elements of looking at homes. Like, if you have work, do you have a commute, concern, okay? Where is your work? Are you in Boston, or are you in the suburb? Okay, can you take public transportation if you're going to work? Okay, how much time do you want to spend on commuting? Okay, if you go to Westboro, for example, are you, is a 1 hour commute to Boston, is that okay with you? Okay, and for people that have kids, okay, or are starting out families, schools maybe are very important factors. Okay, so they want to go into a strong school system. So do you want to go to a good school system, or you want to go to an excellent school system? And for people who are downsizers, they say, oh, my kids are done with school. We don't care about school system. Now that you gotta consider is good school system area, it holds up the property value.
Right.
Okay. So don't necessarily just, I don't care and I'm just gonna go somewhere out there. That's something that we also need to factor into our consideration.
Right.
And the next thing is affordability. Right. So how much money do you have? What do you have in the budget, and what can you afford? And so these are the three key elements that pretty much every buyers that I talk to need to consider, right?
Right. Can't I have all of those then?
Well, you could. You could,
Depending on your budget, right?
Yeah, I don't know where yet. Not in the Boston area, we just have to trade off. I think in life you gotta trade off at the different phase of your life, right? So when I was single, I don't care about school. I live downtown. I buy a little studio. I'm very happy, right? So when I have kids, I need to find more space. So then I need to trade off that commute time, perhaps. If I have a certain limit of budget. So, living in Acton, that commute, an hour or so, maybe.
Probably to Cambridge.
To Cambridge, then I need to kind of take that into consideration. And also, like, if you have, both parents are working or both partners are working, you gotta kind of have a trade-off.
Yep.
Right? So, so I would say that's a continuous conversation. Okay? It's not something that you can just put down and be set with. Because as you start looking, you start have to think about, okay, now can I live with a little bit more commute and get a little bit more home, okay, and get into a better school system.
Right. At the expense of commute.
So, just at the expense of a little commute.
Right.
Or and for now, many of us we don't go to office every day. Okay,
Right.
I mean, I see a lot more reds now on the Google map where the traffic starts building up. So maybe for some people who can do 2 days, 3 days at home and 2 days at work, so we can kind of have a little bit more commute distance, if you will.
Right.
So that's the conversation that we must have.
Right.
When we begin. Okay, and then of course having that criteria, then you start thinking about what do I need and what do I want. Okay.
Right.
And I always, when my kids were younger, they want everything, right? So I always tell them that just put out your hand, okay? You have 5 fingers, so you can, have 5 needs, okay?
Right, okay. There you go. That's what we do.
So put down your needs, okay? And then we can talk about what else you want, right? So you gotta know your must-haves, okay? So based on what we're just talking about, either the commute time or the school, then you say, okay, school is very important, okay? And then the next thing is, if I have 3 kids, and I need how many number of bedrooms, right? And I need maybe extra bathroom, and I need, extra 2 rooms for home office. And garage, maybe it's important for, like my, relocation people coming from California. They're like, oh my gosh, we can't live without garage, how can we live without garage?
Right.
Then we gotta move a little bit further out, like in Acton, maybe at the home price, and you can get 1-car garage, okay? But you gotta commute a bit more.
Right.
So that's kind of, the trade-off based on, your criteria, for the needs and wants. But it's important to be realistic, right? To be really realistic based on, like your budget as well.
Yep.
And then I would say it doesn't hurt to put all your nice to haves. Like I want a big bathtub, like a hot tub in the bathroom. So put that on your wish list, and maybe we'll run into a home that fits that can help you to get that. Okay. And it's also important to talk to people that are part of the process. For instance, the partners, your spouse and family members. And then also for some people who are just starting out, maybe the first-time home buyers, I've seen that the parents are helping, or Uncle Joe, Aunt Mary say, hey, I'll help you, to put your down payment down. And those are people that is important to have a conversation.
Yeah, kind of bring everybody in,
right?
Especially if they can help financially.
Right, exactly.
They definitely have. They think they have a say. Whether they do or not is a different question, but they definitely think they have a say.
Right. But it's important to get everybody kind of upfront and talk about the needs and wants and what we want to trade off to go with that. Okay. And the next important thing is really to establish your budget. Like I said, affordability is how much money do you have. So it's important to, I would say, to my people is that, okay, have you talked to a lender? Do you need a lender to talk to? It's important to kind of have a sense of how much you can afford. Okay. So there are a couple of things. Either you get a pre-approval or you get a pre-qualified. Pre-qualify is something that pre-qualification is something really quick. The lender, based on conversation with you on the phone and with some key data you give them, they can give you a letter to say, okay, based on your information, you qualify for $1 million, okay, and with 20% down, for example.
Right.
And pre-approval, right now, I find pre-approval is, it gives more strength, if you will, because pre-approval, you have to submit a certain amount of documents to the lender, and then they, you know, based on that, they assess it and they give you a pre-approval letter. Okay, and that's really give a more weight than just a pre-qual. And right now in COVID, last year, even now, a lot of sellers, they want to see pre-approval letter. Okay, to know that these buyers are serious. They're not just out there looking around. Okay, and they want to know that these buyers are able to afford to buy the home that they are bidding for. Okay, so and I want to say that, you know, what's good about it is that once you get your pre-approval, then you kind of know what you can afford, but you don't necessarily have to like spend it all. For example, you're pre-approved for 1.5 million. You can budget yourself to say, I want to look for a home around 1.2 million. Okay, but that gives you a little room when you enter into competing offer situation that you can maneuver and maybe up a little bit, you know, in that purchase price. Okay, so that's a kind of the mindset that we gotta have.
Because we had this situation with a house we bought on the market in Saugus not very long ago.
Yeah.
There were two buyers. Both came in after we'd gone through the best and final at about the same price. But one was a 73% borrower, one was a 95% borrower.
Right.
The challenge with the 95% is that they were stretching it just that little bit too far. And then a seller's looking at that with the advice of the listing agent to say, you know, that much as both will probably, you know, get through to closing, there's less risk with somebody who's putting more down than somebody who's borrowing so much. And so I always advise buyers too, is that be conservative as well, just because in a competitive environment, you may need that little bit of a buffer, because as you compare two people, the one I described was kind of 20% difference, but it might only be 5 or 10% difference. But the seller in this world is likely to hedge towards the less risky one. So another one about not kind of pushing yourself, you know, I really want to afford 750, but actually I can only afford it if I'm a 90+% borrower. Maybe bring your expectations down a little bit just to give you a little bit of extra buffer too. Especially in this market.
Yeah,
so
in this market is very important, right? So don't stretch yourself, but also show that you are a solid buyer. Right. Know, so that's important. But the key is, even if you get a pre-approval or pre-qualification from the lender, it doesn't mean that you are committed to use that. So once you get your offer accepted, you can go shop around. You know, like we have a lot of lenders we use. We can give it a suggestion, and you can go shop around to find a good rate or a good program that fits your needs. So I think that's something to think about. You're not locked into the lender.
Right, you're just getting that number that says, okay, whatever happens, that's as much as you can afford. Right. You can come down from that, but that's as much as you can afford.
Exactly. So, and another question, another point here, budget, is that once you've gone through the pre-approval and you look at your budget and think about your financial situation, you know, you gotta think about, a lot of my people are renters. They're currently renting, they want to buy. Now the question you gotta do a good assessment is that, okay, does that make sense, right? So does it make sense? And is it gonna, you know, the renting now versus the buying, the owning the home, it is a great idea because you are paying the rent to yourself.
True.
Now, okay, so, but the key is that are you going to be stretched so much, okay, that you're gonna have some, you know, financial kind of restriction, if you will, and also that
house poor,
if you will. So, or also that if you think that you may be only in the area for another year or two, okay, does it make sense to buy? Because there's a lot of costs involved with purchasing a home as well. So that's kind of the financial planning, you know, that we also have that conversation with.
And thinking about what happened during COVID, one thing that did happen in COVID is that people suddenly realized that I don't actually need to be an hour from work. I'm not going to go into the office maybe ever again. Right. You know, I can be 5 hours, I can be halfway across the country. Right. And so that's where that renting gives you a little bit of flexibility. If you're in that position where you're not sure, maybe I do want to move. I had a story today where somebody had moved from DC to Minnesota. Clearly you can buy a lot more in Minnesota than you can in just outside DC. Course, but you know, guess what? I mean, you need that flexibility, and if you're thinking maybe in a year or two, maybe I don't even need to be where I am today, then perhaps renting becomes more important. Right. One other thing that we always make a big play of how much money you have to put down. Right. But in talking to our son is thinking of buying a home. when I was explaining it to him, it's one, how much money you have as in terms of a down payment, but also the mortgage you're getting is really a function of how much you can afford on a month-by-month basis. It is what house you buy is. There is a factor with how much money you have for your down payment, but in terms of the mortgage, it's about what your income is month in, month out.
Right.
That's going to govern how much the bank will lend you.
Right. It depends on it also depends on how much property tax of that town
Insurance
is.
and property tax.
So you all have to factor that into your monthly expenses.
Right.
So some condos has a very high condo fee. Okay, and then your ability to get the loan, the amount will be lessened because you gotta add that expenses into your monthly expenses.
Right. Yep.
So that's something to think about. So I think it's very important to, when you start thinking, get into that earlier in the process to talk to a lender. Call me. I'll be happy to recommend a few lenders that I work with often that they will be very happy to just talk with you and give you a pre-approval because they want to start that connection earlier, with you. Okay, so I think that's important.
Yep.
Okay. So, what is the role of the buyer's agent?
Yeah, what's a buyer's agent?
Yes.
We can talk about listing agents in a minute, so the counter point between the two of you.
And we do both, but as a buyer's agent, we work for you. So before we kind of get into that, what's the role? I would want to say that buying is a very complicated process, okay? So it's a long process, and it's important that you kind of create a team for yourself to help you. A team of people, professionals, okay? So the buyer's agent is the first person to start with, okay? A professional buyer agent, not just part-time somebody, okay? Right? So somebody who knows what they're doing, who's been in the market, and it's, doing the transaction in and out. So they are trained and they're knowledgeable, okay? And the buyer agent, the key is the buyer agent works for you, okay? And represent you, and they have the fiduciary duties towards you, okay, as your agent. And what they will do is, what I'll do, not just them, but what I'll do, I know what I'll do, is that, representing somebody as an agent to me is very important. Is, actually, for me sometimes is I take it more serious even for myself. Like when I buy my home, I'm like, okay, all right, that's good enough. But when I represent my buyers, to me is a very important job. Is that what I need to do is kind of share with you my experiences, and share with you my advice, and also give you some wisdom of what I've been through, okay, to share with you, and to help you to make a purchase, a smart decision. And I like to do it based on using data. I think it's important because buying is an emotional process. Okay, so I think it's very important that that we use the data that we have to educate you about the local market. Okay, and also of course, once we gone through the searching process, manage the offer process, and there's a lot going on behind the scene when you do the offer and you negotiate on your behalf. You gotta be able to trust that agent who is represent you. Okay, so the buyer's agent is, I would say, is right next to you along the way as you're doing the search. Okay, in front of you to represent you, to negotiate the best term, the price and the condition for you on your behalf, and behind you to support you, right? So as you
after you've got that accepted
offer to support you, to go through that process, go through the inspection, get the purchase and sale signed, and then kind of help you to foresee some possible problems that could happen and help you to solve it. Okay, so it's a great resource for you, but also a great, I would say, an advisor, a counsel, and I actually become friends with all my buyers pretty much. So a good friend to you, really. I mean, the advice I would share with my buyers are the advice I would share with my friends and families.
Right.
Okay, so that's how I see it as me as a buyer's agent.
And I think that comes down to our philosophy as a company. Take a step back. Is this is a relationship for life.
Yes.
Inevitably, this is not a single transaction. It clearly is a transaction to buy the home, but it's not that. It's about that long-term relationship with a buyer and or a seller at that point.
Right. And the key is that why buyer agent is that a lot of people say I can just go someone and they can just put an offer in for me. Of course, an agent can put any offer in, but how much do they know your needs? Do they understand, what your goals are, and are really representing you wholeheartedly? I think that's really, if you don't have that relationship building up, it's hard for someone trying to represent you,
right,
successfully.
Because you might easily, and we've all done it, recommend they not buy a home.
Right, exactly. I've done
You've done that many times.
I'm
not sure this fits. You get that emotion kicks in, but where
right,
they go, oh, hold on a minute.
Right,
Does this actually fit?
Right, especially when I have a lot of relocation people. They came into town, they don't know the area well, they saw the home, the first home, they fell in love. I gotta have it. I'm like, let's kind of sit back, look at some data. There are homes that were sold at this price point, and then they will be coming up more, okay? So you don't want to just plunge in and pay, 10% over asking price just to have it, right? So, and that really surprised them, that I would advise them to say that's not necessarily the right fit for you,
right?
Okay, not all the agent will be willing to do that, because when agents say that, they take a risk of not, how should I say, they take the risk of losing that client.
Yep.
If transaction is always on their mind, but relationship is on our mind, is that we want to build a relationship with you. So we want to give you the best advice.
Right, so it's as easy to say, no, this is the wrong one, as it is, yes, this is the right one.
Yes, exactly.
It becomes very easy to make that call.
Right, exactly. Right. So, and it's all backed by data. So anyhow, so, here it says, okay, yeah, of course, we, you don't have to pay for it, for the buyer's agent here, the seller pays for it.
Right, that's how it works.
So
that's the buyer's agent,
right?
But why should, what's the converse of that?
Right. Okay. So listing agent, I was a listing agent before, and when I represent the sellers, I work for the sellers only. Okay. My role is to get the best price, the best terms, best conditions for my seller. Okay. Right. So seller is on my list. So right now I have.
That doesn't look like it gels with the buyer's agent, which wants to get the best terms and the best conditions for the buyer. And I don't think those two are necessarily aligned.
No, I think last time I had an analogy is like, you look at the hand, right? I'm the seller agent in my palm, and then the listing, if my buyer's agent on the back of, I can negotiate. My hand cannot negotiate with itself, right? So I am when I represent the seller, if you ask me to help you buy the home that I represented, the only thing I can tell you is put down your offer and I'll present to my seller. Okay, and of course, I would try to get as much for my seller, right? Of course. So some buyers think that, I can get a discount because then you don't have to pay the commission to the agent. Well, it's already in the contract. The seller is paying the listing agent that contract, commission anyway. So there is not a discount that if you use me.
Right.
Right.
Yep. There is no discount. You're right.
Right. So there's a the myth about if I buy from the listing agent, I get a discount. So the seller is already paying me. So right, and I think that there's really a conflict of interest, like I mentioned, and they don't know you, right? The listing agent, you come to the house, you want to buy, they don't know you, they don't know what you are, they don't need to build relationship with you, they're just doing a transaction. They say, sure, I'll put an offer in, okay, I'll try to help you buy the home, and my seller wants this much, you want to put in this much, so that's kind of the conflict that I see, and there are agents who do dual aging, like we talk about, but we are we are choosing that's not how we can work.
I always find it the most difficult buy. We all have been in a situation where a buyer will come to an open house and say, I'd like to work with you, the listing agent, and if you just even trying to navigate that to try and understand what their needs and wants are, it's difficult because there is no relationship with that person, it's just too difficult. We've kind of said been in a situation where we've been asked, but there is no longevity to that. We've not worked with you for a while to understand what you want, to be able to say, yes, I think you want this house, but are you sure you want this house? Because it doesn't seem like it fits all of your criteria. And so that's why, the buyer's agent, getting those two together is really key.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You, the buyer, and the buyer's agent, a trusted advisor was one, a way I've described it at some point, is really key to somebody you can go to and can you tell me what's going on in the market? What about this house? Do you think this will? Somebody you can just float the idea to.
Right. And someone that who genuinely will be on your side.
Right.
Okay, who is on the side of you and try to look out for your best interest and give you the solid advice on what is the right offer price to put in perhaps, and help you to kind of evaluate the home that you want to buy. And help you to negotiate, help you to set up terms and conditions that's to your interest, to your best of your interest. So I think that's really very important when you think about who to use, and have a trusted advisor, to stay with you along the way, and to help you buy the home within the right price that fits your need. That's very important.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's competitive.
Okay.
So smart buying, staying one step ahead of the competition. So a couple of strategies to talk about here, which are kind of interesting. Perhaps many buyers have not thought about the two different strategies. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, they are. I mean, they really, if you look at a home, on the market, I would say they're kind of two groups, right? So you have homes that are, freshly, really nice, beautiful home, recently renovated, turnkey, just moving ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very, it kind of, for a lot of buyers, they can just move in and not have to worry about anything. Okay, and then the other group is home that you can actually, invest in, the fixer-uppers. Some of the buyers, they're willing to kind of take some effort to clean up the house, take down the wallpaper and paint it. I can't even forget that word.
Paint it,
brush
right.
it, paint brush it. I'm thinking paint brush it.
Right.
Okay, so but that what we call is a sweat equity. Okay.
Right.
So something that some buyers will be willing to do, but when it's not kind of upgraded or renovated, the buyers expect that it's you can pay a little bit less price for that. They
want a little bit less competition.
Less competition.
Well. Right.
It will be less competition because a lot of people. Especially first-time home buyers, okay, or I would say downsizers, because at this time they want to be able to just move in. Okay,
right.
They want to just kind of unpack, pack up and move in. So they don't have to worry about the uncertainties of where do I find the contractors? Are the contractors available? What do I have to do? I have to go to Home Depot and go buy all this stuff, and put it myself. I don't know how to do that, but so that's kind of attraction of the newly, freshly renovated, upgraded, type of homes, and with that you get a lot more competition.
Right,
okay.
That's the key.
Right, that's the key. Right. So
and I guess we should say here, if we were doing a seller's seminar, we would be talking about this, but kind of reverse.
Yeah, we would.
Because what we'd be saying is, you see, if you don't remove the wallpaper, buyers are going to expect a discount. So what we recommend is that you do that little bit of fixing up before.
Right.
So, kind of from a seller's perspective, we kind of reverse.
Right.
So now we're doing it from a buyer's perspective.
Of course, so when we put on different hats,
right.
When we're the listing agent hat, we would say, okay, the buyers are looking for freshly painted, kind of upgraded, cosmetic, kind of improved homes. So let's take care of that, and then that will improve your equity as well. But as a buyer's agent, I must say, hold on, you don't need to pay that much more. You can look at this one that need a little bit of work. Okay, and you can put some, sweat equity for yourself. Right. Don't pay that for that much.
So there's the difference between a buyer's agent and a listing agent.
Yes. So when we put on our hat, we're very clear what we need to say. Yes. Okay. So the strategy number one is take on competition. Okay. Yes. Like I mentioned before.
Right.
When the home is beautifully presented, it checks out all the boxes for many people. And if their goal just wanting to go and move in and not to worry about anything, then you gotta be ready. Like I said, we had, one home, 8 offers, 5 waived inspections, and
right. You can be sure that the seller of that home had done that little bit of fixing up if there was any to do. That was all done.
Oh yeah.
So they could. And taking you back to the house in Acton, they got 24 offers.
Right.
We know because we advised the seller to do that little bit of fixing up. And guess what? 24 people were willing to compete for that home.
Right. Yes.
So get comfortable with the competition because there's going to be bidding wars for those kind of homes.
Yes.
And it can be tough. It can definitely be tough in that market, which is why we want to kind of think about strategy number 2.
Yes.
Because maybe that's a little bit easier to buy a home.
Right. If you I mean, right now there's no inventory now, of course.
Right, of course.
Even the strategy too, you don't
Yeah,
even
right,
have
yes,
that.
you're
But
right.
as the more inventory comes out, when people are not getting good advice from the seller, the selling agent, okay, listing agent, don't tell them what to do.
Right.
Then that's our chance. Okay, that's our chance.
Right.
So look for the home that wasn't well prepared, that wasn't polished up, and that you don't get as many any buyers that want to go there. Then we go there. We go there and we look at what we can do, right? And I always say, look beyond the flower wallpaper that from 1960s, all right? Okay, yep. and look beyond the clutters. The important thing is that you gotta look at that is a good location, right? So when we talk about buying, it's always about location, and then also is the floor plan of this home. Is it easily that you can change it or relay out to make it to fit your needs, right? And how is the lighting coming from outside and other amenities, and then look at the price, the space for the price. Okay, right. So that's really the key when you look at what we call the strategy number 2.
Right. So focus on the fundamentals, because if the house does not have the fundamentals when it needs fixing up, it's still not going to have the fundamentals when you've spent that money painting it and doing what you do to it. So kind of, as you say, take a look at the basics of it,
right?
Layout, location, all those kind of
Very
things.
important. I mean, there was a home on the market for a long time, and the reason why I wouldn't recommend my buyers to go, it was right behind a railroad track. I mean, the railroad track is right behind it, right? So I mean, even though it's a very low price, now unless you want to live next to the railroad track and you're okay with that. But that's really, I would consider not a very desirable location for majority of the buyers, right? So, and you cannot move the railroad track, so you just kind of have to.
Right, they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere. They're stuck.
Wallpaper you can move, but the railroad tracks, guess what? They're stuck there.
Exactly. So that's a very and only really your advisor agent will say, hey, it's good price. I mean, I got a phone call like, how about that home? It's still on the market. I say, well, you look at that railroad track in the back. That's why it's still on the market.
Right. Go to Google Maps. Tell me what's behind it.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of the key is to make sure that you kind of survey why is it still on the market. Get to know why. The location. So yeah.
So what we thought would be useful to give you some befores and afters.
Yeah.
Because as you see as we go through, that some of the befores are, oh really? Oh, and then you look at the after and you go, okay, I could live there. So kind of useful, I think, to go through
I love these pictures.
Right. Here's the before.
Right.
Here's the after.
Oh, I remember this one. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, all that's been done is take down the drapes.
Right.
Remove the wallpaper.
Right.
Paint. Refinish the floors.
Yeah. And then clear out the clutter.
Right.
Right. And I mean, the light fixture still stays.
Yep, it's the same light fixture.
It's the same
right.
light fixture.
So that's all that's been done there. I mean, not very much in terms of making that happen.
Exactly.
And so, in all of these, we're not talking about huge renovation projects. You could do that if you want. Put a second floor on, add bathrooms. This is all about cosmetic
very
changes.
Cosmetic.
Right.
Exactly.
Really isn't. And something that almost anybody can do, or is relatively inexpensive to get done with the contractor.
Right. Yeah, I've seen home like this. Yes. Okay.
But then
you paint it. Yeah. It's very easy to do, right? You can. It's a DIY project at home. Actually, Home Depot would be your best friend.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Find where the Home Depot or the Lowe's is.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Here's another example.
Yeah.
Paint the kitchen cabinets.
Yeah. It's the same kitchen. It looks totally different.
Totally. The vinyl was replaced. It looks a bit tatty, but it's still vinyl flooring that was put down. In this case, looking at the countertops are painted too.
Yeah.
But it's basically the same kitchen.
Yeah.
And so that's all cosmetic.
And that's what I do when I go take my buyers out to see homes that are, well presented. I open the cabinet to see if they're painted first, right?
Right. Go back to this one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We can easily spot if this was the 1960s kitchen and we're just kind of painted, cosmetically fixed, and try to help them to understand, what can be done, right? And give them example. I say, when we go to the next house that looks like, the brown kitchen, we can make it into the white kitchen.
Right. Paint it and change upgrade the cabinets,
yeah.
and that's all you have to do.
Exactly.
That's all you have to do.
Exactly.
Same is true of bathrooms.
Oh, yes.
Here's an example where the tile has been painted in this bathroom.
Right.
And you can see the difference. And it may well be that you think, oh, I really would like to update that kitchen, bathroom, excuse me, but I don't need to today. You can wait 2-3 years, maybe longer, until perhaps you've got the equity to be able to upgrade that bathroom. But this is a bathroom that you can kind of live with today for the next few years.
Exactly.
And so that's the key message for buyers here is it's really straightforward to go from the blue one to the pastel color ones.
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of my buyers, when they see that kind of blue tiles and pink tile, they're like, oh, this reminds me of my grandma. I can live here.
Right.
I'm like, yes, you can. Just paint it white. You know?
Right. That's all you have to do. There's another
picture.
example here.
Exactly. Yeah. And they can paint the laminated cabinet too, Marcus. That I saw.
Yes, in this case, you're right. So
cabinet.
you can paint tile and you can paint laminate.
Yeah.
We don't normally paint laminate counters, but in this case it has.
They did, yeah.
But this has been done here.
Right.
Floors you don't paint.
You don't paint,
because it doesn't work on floors.
Right.
But you can do everything else as you see here.
Just put a rock down on the floor, you know,
Right.
and you just cover it up.
Cover up the tile work.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So. Yeah, another just fresh paint and
There you
replace
go.
the carpet. You know,
Yep.
looks voila, very different.
In this case, the carpet was, I think, removed because it was really tatty.
Right.
And vinyl, luxury vinyl tiles were put in, or vinyl tile was flooring was put in. You can see the difference. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Not just the inside too. A couple of examples here of the outside.
Yes.
This one looks a little, I guess, dowdy.
Yeah.
Dowdy.
Yeah.
Yeah, dowdy. What about that? Now, clearly
Right.
it's much nicer.
Yes.
If you notice the trees that are here, scraggly trees
Right.
were removed.
Right.
It was the garage
Garage
doors, the
door
trim was
painted,
painted. This was a listing photo,
Yeah.
as was this. This is when we listed it. This sold very quickly, sold for
Yes.
competing offers very quickly.
Right.
But that's the difference you can make in terms of the exterior, and you can also do some landscaping.
Right.
Because we always show this
Right.
example.
The curb appeal is so important, right? So this is what we talk about. We joke about this, like the COVID-19 period. Like you don't go get a haircut and you cover yourself, and then once you get a haircut, you look beautiful. So this
There you go.
this is what the true face of the home.
Right.
And I think there's a fresh coat of paint outside too.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it looks.
But
like
what always strikes me about the before here
Right.
is how dark it would have been in the house.
Yes. Yes.
Because these windows were all covered.
Yeah.
So the house would have been dark, and you go in there and it just feels dark.
Right, and you got all the natural light coming in now, so that one probably went very quickly.
Yes, afterwards, not
Yeah.
before. Afterwards.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So strategy 1, compete. If you want, if you're comfortable with that. Strategy 2, look at a house that ticks all the boxes for the fundamentals, but needs that quick upgrade. I mean,
Right.
as I say, nothing here. We didn't do anything structural here. We just basically cosmetic changes.
Right.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
All about cosmetic.
And it's helpful to see the picture because sometimes it's harder for the home buyers to visualize it, right? To see, oh my God, that blue tile, how can you change that? But with the pictures, it can be done. And then that once you have that vision in your head, then you say, oh, that's doable.
Yep.
Okay, and so make it easier for them to make a decision. Yeah, we will take that, instead of going to compete and putting offer every other weekend and then
Right.
keep losing it. So
Right. Go on and on and on, as we see quite frequently.
Yeah.
So, strategy 1 or strategy 2?
Yeah.
Your call, clearly. The buyer's call, if they're not comfortable going to Home Depot. But, it's interesting. I'll tell you a personal story now. Our son, he actually lives in California, he would never go to Home Depot. He was like, no, I don't want to go in near Home Depot. He ended up buying, in fact, one of these kind of fixer-uppers, if you like.
Really?
Now,
He's a pro.
he's a pro, absolutely.
He can call out aisle numbers.
Combination of Home Depot and Amazon.
Yeah. I mean,
It's often
I find
running.
it
So-
fun. I find it really fun. I mean, I can paint, I put out the paint and I can paint.
Yep.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, most people can do it themselves,
Yeah.
But say if you went from never doing anything like this to Amazon and Home Depot, he's
Yeah.
off and running.
And he'll be happy, by the time he gets his equity, like we call
Right.
the sweat equity. When he's ready to sell, he's going to be so happy that
Right.
he put that effort in there. So that's great.
So,
All right.
search.
Search. Okay.
Okay, that was the fun bit. Now, now I'm going to find that needle in a haystack. How do I actually do
There's
that?
no haystack right
no,
now.
Right, so there's no haystack.
So, when this is why when I get a phone call, from people, always, referral or friends and say, I say it's a smart thing to do is to engage a buyer's agent, or locally. Because they know the market, the good ones. I mean, I gotta kind of say the professional ones, okay? Not just everybody, right? So what I do is that I'm trying to think about how to summarize this. So right now, actually during COVID, let me share with you what I do. Okay, when I get a call, is that I would get on the call and talk to them and say, let's set up a Zoom meeting. Okay. So we have a Zoom meeting. Everybody is used to Zoom meeting now. So we get on a Zoom meeting. And then what I would do is we talk about what their needs, okay, kind of what they would like and kind of the approximate price points that they want to search and kind of refer them to a few lenders to get a pre-approval. And then we would look at on the screen. I'll go to my system and go, just kind of pull out some homes that are on the market in the towns or in the nearby towns that kind of fit their price range. And then we would just kind of look at the map and kind of go through what we talk about, the three elements, right? What's your commute needs? School, like what type of school are you looking for? And then, how much can you afford, right? So based on that map, then we kind of go through the homes and then we kind of set up, then I would help them set up on our system, some of the searches with the towns that we kind of qualified that would work for them. Okay, and then from there they will get daily email update. Right. So the Zoom is very, very flexible now that we can do at night. After work we just kind of go through and also with that I can share with them location. Right. You want to be near highway, you can tell right away. You want to be near highway. Are you okay with highway, or do you want to be kind of in the more less of farther away from the noises? And at the same time also share with them the towns and the neighborhoods, right? So, and right now, one other thing I do is that if people are just kind of started and they're all over the map, well, I would say that, okay, let's pick 3 towns, right? And you just go drive around. Okay, these are 3 towns and these are 3 homes. On weekend we don't have a whole lot of open houses now. True. So I would just say go drive through the town when you have on weekend want to go get some fresh air. Drive around the town and get a feel of the town and to see if you even like that town. And then if you don't like it, we'll just take it off our list and then go to the next one. Okay, so that's kind of how I started approaching at the beginning. Yeah.
Because the pre-COVID, it was a good. Buyers inevitably have a relatively wide search in terms of the towns they would like. Sometimes a very wide search. Right. And as you're looking at those towns in April, March and April, there could be a relatively small number of homes. Once you get to May, there could be an awful lot more. And so you'll get overwhelmed by the number of homes that are available. So that's where this can narrow down the towns to the ones that you feel comfortable in, because if you haven't bought by the time you get to May, there'll still be a manageable number of homes coming on the market, and it won't just be kind of overwhelming. And that's really the idea behind this 1 to 3 towns.
Yeah, exactly. So right now it's a good time to start now thinking about if you want to buy a home this year. So it's time to, even though there's snow on the ground, but it's time to just kind of talking to the agent now and just like what went through that process and start preparing yourself. I would say preparing yourself and get everything kind of ready. And if there is a home that you like, you can arrange the private showing to go in and see and just kind of get a sense of what you like and what you don't like. Because by the time that when there's a larger volume inventory coming up, if you are still searching like 5 towns, you're gonna be overwhelmed by 100 listings and don't know which one to go. Right. That will be really a haystack, right? So
that really is. That's the whole idea of this kind of needle in a haystack.
Right, exactly.
Narrow that down so it just doesn't become completely overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my practices, and we can evaluate. I mean, what I do also is in the buying consultation time is I also pull out homes that are sold last year. Okay, in the town that they are really interested in, and I show them homes I saw last year within that price range, what could they look like? You know, what can you buy with that price?
Right.
Of course, it's a little bit more now.
A little bit more, yes, just a few
Just
percent
a
is
tiny
more.
bit more, but at least you have a sense of with your budget, what kind of home can you get, right? So that's how kind of I help them to evaluate the towns.
Right.
Yeah, that's my practice. So
There's a lot of, we talked before about data's key.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information on our website that will help this as well. And we always do when we show this, we kind of juxtaposition two towns. And I'm going to juxtaposition Arlington and Lexington.
Right.
Arlington, single family in the 900s is the median. Lexington, single family median price is 1.4. So there's a difference here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to look at the sales price distribution between these two.
Right. And I use this a lot. Like I look at the town that they want and I show them. And let's say you have $800, you have $700,000 as your budget. So it's a great fit, in Arlington. Right? Some people, they come with the 700 to $1 million. They say, oh, I want to buy a home within this. This is my price range. It's a great fit, right? So you have some choices between 700 and between 800 and 900.
Yep.
Right. So, but if you go to Lexington, the next page is that it's a bit challenging. You get a few of those 700 and 800s. Okay, and in Lexington, homes in that price are highly competitive. Okay?
Yep, everybody, right? Yep.
Everybody wants them. Okay,
Yep.
That's their goal. I want to be in Lexington, the best school district. And at that below 1 million price range. So it's a very tough. You gotta be prepared to compete.
Right.
So.
Strategy 1 comes in there.
Yes.
But just kind of go back and forth here. So as Wenjian's saying, 7, 8, 9, 27, 34, 34. Go to Arlington, 35, 72.
Right. Yeah.
31. So there's a lot more homes in that 700 price range.
Right.
You've got much higher probability of being successful here in Arlington
Exactly.
than you would there in Lexington.
Right.
And the converse applies as well, of course. If you've got 1.8 million to spend and you're looking to spend that kind of money, Lexington's a great town, whereas Arlington maybe not so much.
Not so much.
It kind of works both ways.
Right.
It allows you to bring towns in and exclude towns if the distribution doesn't fit your buyer profile, your price range, your price range.
Yeah.
So
and we don't not only we have Lexington, we have how many more?
Well, 50. You keep asking me for more, Wenji. Wenji keeps asking me for more.
The goal is to fill the map.
Right.
Right, exactly.
We have something like 50 50 towns
right,
that you can look at. So not just these two, just
Right.
use these because there's such a difference between them and it kind of shows the point very well.
Right.
But we have towns in all of the area around where we are.
Exactly.
So there's lots and lots of information to allow you to do a lot of this. Use your fingers, do the walking used to be
absolutely. And I think the key, which advantage of this is that you can do this at the comfort of your home, right? You don't get fatigued driving around trying to see the homes. You can look at some of the data and kind of understand, narrow down your search. And that's a smart search, right? You don't waste your energy driving around, right? So.
And the limited possibility to get into homes as well today. So, you don't want to have 10 homes to look on. We used to go and look at 10 homes on Saturday.
Right.
Now that's a little bit more challenging to do in this environment.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've made and now I need to write an offer, don't I? I need to get serious
now
about
we're
this.
Serious. Now we found something we love. Yes.
So
okay.
the offer process, how does that whole thing work? I mean, it's kind of a key question that buyers often ask.
Yeah, well, it's a few elements that goes with the offer. Okay, once you gotta first decide the price of the home, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll help you to kind of evaluate the home and make suggestion of what type of what's the good price and how much you're willing to pay, right? But this is already accepted. Okay, so we're already accepted.
Right. I mean, how does that whole when you're writing that offer, how does that work?
Yeah. Okay. So in that offer process, usually you put initial deposit of about $1,000. Unless you're in a very competitive offer situation, we may up that. Depends on the situation. And in the normal days, you can have inspection contingency.
Right. Maybe you can too if you've got strategy too.
Yeah.
If it's a fixer-upper, that's when...
Exactly. But when you're in a competing offer situation, when we know that this home is going to get a lot of offers, we would really suggest that you do a pre-offer inspection. I think we can...
We'll talk about inspection. There's a whole thing around inspections, which
Right.
is why we kind of broke that one out. a
Right,
little bit.
right. So the normal time is that you get an all inspection contingency, which is accepted offer, then you do your home inspection, and then usually you get the home inspector usually is what it depends on the size
Depends
of the
on the
home.
size,
so
right, yeah.
you say 500, 1,000, that's roughly about that cost. And if you find some issues during the inspection, then you can negotiate for them to either fix it or get some money back, or you can exit the agreement. And when you exit, you get your deposit back.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a non-refundable deposit
Right.
when you're writing an offer on a home.
Right, exactly.
If you meet certain criteria, then your deposit is returned. So there's no non-refundable deposit
Right.
in real estate.
Right. So and once after inspection is completed, you'll agree. Then you go to the purchase and sales, which is about 1 to 3 days later. And at that time, you pay 5% of the deposit minus the initial deposit that
right,
you
yeah.
pay. And the attorney usually, if the attorneys represent you and also the lender, then you save some cost on attorney cost. Okay. And that's what we have.
Right. So, I mean, that's a key one to remember, is that depending on what happens with the inspection, but within latest two weeks from an accepted offer, you will need to find 5% for that at that purchase and sale time. That's something to think about as you're thinking about financing. We've had situations where a buyer may have their money, but it may be overseas. I had that situation last year. Within 10 days, you're going to need 5% of the purchase price. Oh, it's overseas. How do I get it here? So worth remembering this kind of timeline, that really you want to get you've had this situation too, I think, where people have not had the money in the country.
Yes.
Good to get that. If you are serious about buying a home, remember that relatively quickly, you're going to need that 5%. So get those funds available to you really before you think about buying a home,
right.
getting serious, if you like.
And that if you start your process early, working with the professional agent, I would advise you,
Yeah.
where is your money?
Where
right?
is it, right?
Yeah, make sure that you have enough that deposit in the bank here in the U.S., not in France or somewhere somewhere out there.
Right.
So that when this process goes, it goes very quickly.
It does. I think it can be a long process to get the accepted offer,
Right.
but once you get to accepted offer, it moves relatively
Right.
quickly at that point.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
days apart,
Yeah.
things happen quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, purchase and sale out of the way.
Yeah, and then then that's when you submit the mortgage,
Right.
application. You do that one day after the purchase and sale, so that you have enough time to to get that mortgage processed. And usually you have a contingency about 4 weeks after you sign the purchase and sale.
Right.
Okay, and what does the mortgage contingency do for you is that if you're unable, if your bank declined the loan for some reason, you're unable to get the financing, at that time, on that day, you can exit the contract, okay, to get your full deposit back. So that's important. So it's important to maintain that tracking, to make sure that your mortgage process is in place. Everything is going smoothly. Okay, so if you get financing, then you cannot back out. You have to go through and buy the home. So that's kind of that mortgage contingency.
Yep, that's key.
Yep. And normally you close after 14 days, but now that because we see the competing offer situation, the seller sometimes wants you to accelerate that process. They want to close as soon as you can. So it sometimes goes up to you get about 10 days or a week in try to close.
Yep.
So, and the key here is, I cannot emphasize enough, is that why we talk about building a team, right? So, you start with the agent who knows what they're doing, and then they recommend to you the lenders who knows what they're doing.
Responsive,
okay?
right?
Responsive,
That's the
okay,
key one.
responsive, and you can find them when you need to. And then recommend you to attorneys who know what they're doing, the real estate attorney, okay? Not just any attorney can do, but somebody who knows the area. An attorney in Florida doesn't know, how to process what we do here. So every state is different, okay? So that's important to talk to your agent, have a good agent.
Right, and have that kind of team around you.
Yeah.
So we said we talk about inspections, so why don't we talk a little bit about inspections and how every home, even new homes, we actually do have an inspection on new construction too.
Yes.
So just to put that in perspective,
Yes.
there is, even for new homes,
Of
that we
course.
do have an inspection. There's kind of always issues with the home, and it's important to remember that. And there are some strategies to follow in terms of how you structure your offer. Remember, this is structuring an offer in a competitive situation. And what are those inspection strategies that can make you successful at the end of the day?
Right, yeah. So inspection, I always share with my buyers, I always say that, there's not a home perfect, just like no one is perfect.
That's
If
true.
you look at your finger, there's always a gap, right?
Right.
So you're gonna find something, even brand new constructions, right? So in fact, I had one brand new construction had just like 2 pages of things to fix. Okay?
Right, my punch list.
Punch list,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
So that's another story. So the inspection strategy here is that traditional approach, when there's not a competing offer, then you can request inspection, and during that time, the seller really is the one that takes the risk, okay? Because during that inspection time, if you find anything, that gives you the chance to exit, okay, the contract. Then seller has to kind of put their put their home back on the market, so they lost that golden time of having the best offer price. Okay, so that's one approach. And the other approach we talked about earlier is waiving the inspection. Well, the seller loves it because then you go right to purchase and sales. Right. But as an agent, I would never advise you to waive your inspection. If we know that it's a competing offer situation, I would say let's get a pre-offer inspection. Let's try to get into the house, bring an inspector to come in and to give us a quick 1 hour
before you write the offer.
Before you write the offer,
right.
So you know like what are some of the potential issues,
big ticket items, I guess,
items that you may need to fix, and then just have an understanding of what you are walking into. But you absorb the risk because it's before the offer, so you have to pay the inspector. But I call that a investment, right? So that to help you understand the home, while you're trying to go forth to competing for the home.
Right.
Okay. And another one is what we call the inspection aggregate contingency. They call the deduction. What is it? Increased deductible.
Yeah, aggregate deduction.
Yeah, it's called inspection contingency with a higher aggregate amount, right?
Yep.
So sometimes we would say, usually the normal approach was $1,000, so you can exit. But with the competing offer, if we know, we may up to like $5,000 or $10,000. So let's say that would be if you say, I would like to have inspection, but if we do not discover anything over 10,000, then we will continue with
move
the
forward.
purchase and so move.
Right.
Yeah, and that's still a minor risk for the seller, okay? Because you can say you can add up whatever, come up with any reason that make it 10,000, and they somehow they feel that they would have to negotiate, and that's the risk for them too. So that's the 3 inspection kind of strategies.
Right, because I think it's the point at which a transaction is most likely to fail. The inspection. After that, once you get to the mortgage contingency, a lot of that you've got pre-approvals, you've been somewhat conservative. It's very likely that the mortgage contingency will move forward. So this is the point at which we spend a little bit of time on this. This is the time that it's most likely the transaction fails. It's also a very stressful time, I think.
Yeah, it's uncertainty, right?
Right, from both sellers and buyers, and that doesn't bode well for the transaction, but specifically for buyers in this context.
Yeah.
There's especially first-time home buyers who are looking at a house first time.
Right.
And it's kind of a little bit overwhelming, and that's why, back to that team, having an inspector that will explain things in a calm, rational way, put people's minds at ease.
Right.
Clearly focusing on the issues of the home,
right.
but also putting issues in perspective.
Yeah, that's very important. So having the right competent inspector, to do the job.
That team around you is key.
Very important.
Is
yes.
key.
Yes.
Money, yes. Who's picking up the tab?
Uncle Joe.
Right.
Call mom or dad. So, okay. So I'm trying to just kind of grab, kind of.
Well, I think what we mentioned it before. The higher the down payment, the stronger the offer.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Within reason, of course, but
right.
That's worth remembering. And the higher the down payment, the lower risk to the bank. So a higher down payment actually makes people, there's a lot less risk and makes people much more comfortable.
Right, and what that means is that bank will be more likely to to process to give you that mortgage approval if you have a higher down payment, right? So that gives a sense of security, if you will, to the seller. Because the success that this transaction will go successfully.
Right. Yeah.
But another time is very important is that what my buyers understand is the home values are determined by appraisal, not by sale price. So when you are in a highly competing offer situation, sometimes buyers will put so much more, in the purchase price to the home where it doesn't, how should I say, appraised, that it doesn't appraise to the comparable homes in the area. Okay, so at that time, if that appraised lower, then you have to increase your down payment, bring more money to fill that gap, if you will. So that's something that's very important when you talk about the financing, and that's that's what we talk about. Like when you have pre-approval, don't spend it all.
Right, be a little bit conservative because there may be some other things to think about.
So you need that extra room, extra money to pay, or you need to call mom. And also, like your income, assets, your credit score. That's all, part of the mortgage, approval, process.
But important to remember, just to emphasize that the mortgage you get is not necessarily based on the offer price.
Right.
What it's based on is the appraised price, which is a third-party valuation done by an appraiser based on comparable homes. So that's important to remember that being that little bit conservative, perhaps, even though it's a competitive environment, just to have a little bit, in reserve, just in case. Because we did, and I think we talk about this later, we did see the situation last year where appraisers couldn't go into homes and therefore weren't necessarily appraising them as high as if they'd gone into the home, had a close look at it, talked to the listing agent. So we saw a couple of situations last year, which we haven't seen for a long time, where it appraised for less than the offer price.
Yes.
And that's something to kind of think about, as we come now into the 2021 market.
Right.
Having a little bit in reserve, I always think is very important.
Yeah, exactly. So
you also need some in reserve because you've got some closing costs to do. It's not.
So,
there's some other costs that you have to worry about.
Yeah. Not only you pay for the purchase, there's a list of items that you gotta pay, right? So you paid. Well, it depends, right? Depends on. There's not a set number. It depends on where you are, the location, even the county between Middlesex and other counties is different, right? The sale price.
It does differ.
But it all kind of comprise of the lender fee, so which is like appraisal, right? The survey, right? And also the homeowner insurance, the title insurance, your attorney fees. That's part of the closing fee, right? Closing cost. The gas, oil, if there's anything right in the propane tank or in the oil tank that you pay. So it all kinds of add up. And also the condo, if you buy a condo, there's a condo fees. Or taxes, right? So but lender can really give you a whole list of the worksheets and try to give you an estimate of how much you need to kind of bring to the table as a closing cost.
Right. Important to have this one, up front, because this is costs that the buyer will have to meet. The lender, you can't borrow this money to pay these costs. These are costs that you have to meet.
Right.
So that's why we kind of want to call it out a little bit here.
Yeah.
And just say the lenders will kind of put that in perspective.
Right.
So it's not, I have no idea. Actually, here's how much it is. You can get a little bit of information, so kind of basics of it, by going online. There are some closing cost calculators to give you an order of magnitude, but the lender will really be able to put some specificity to that, some actual numbers to that. So that's another role of the lender, and get that up front so they can give you a sense of what these overall costs will be.
So that you're not surprised when you're ready to go close. You got your down payment and you don't have enough money to.
And you find there's another $10,000. How am I going to find that? How am I going to do that?
Right.
You need an attorney in Massachusetts.
Yes.
So
can I just do it myself?
No, people ask that question. No, you can't. So we just answer that question straight away. You can't. You do actually need an attorney.
Right. And I mean, but like people from different states, they have a different experiences. So some states that do not require attorneys, they use the title company or the escrow company to close. I mean, I think I had that in one of my other home that I lived with. So you do need to hire attorney. And like I said before, when you build a team, you gotta build a solid and find a good attorney who knows the real estate attorney who does a lot of transactions. And they can represent you and represent the bank, and that really, a lot of our attorneys do that, and so they can save you some cost there too, right? And when you have, buying home like we just went through, like it's such a complicated process, right? And along the way is like you're driving down the road. There's, I think we're getting some potholes now, on highway. I mean, you're gonna run into some potholes,
Inevitably,
right? Some problems, So it's important to have the right people that goes with you, right? So when you have the right real estate attorneys, then the transaction will be smoother. The attorney that actually calls you back or respond to you, respond to your email, that's a different. I've seen attorneys that
don't even do that.
Right, they say, I'm on vacation,
sure.
I'm sorry, I can't look at the form. I'm like, huh? Okay. Right, so it's important that you have an attorney who is able to be committed, to help.
A responsive real estate attorney. I mean, those are the two key things.
Right.
Because you're right. Things will happen, as you showed before. There's a process here.
Right.
There is 3 weeks to this, 4 weeks to that, 4 days to that.
Right.
And so it's important that everybody's on top of that, and the attorney is going to be an integral part of that.
Exactly. Like, when we have the competing offer, we have 3 days to finish the purchase and sales. We need an attorney to be on top right now, right? Don't go on vacation at this time, but be there and to support that 3 days, because it's a serious deadline. You got to meet that deadline, right?
Indeed.
So and also you gotta have attorney who are familiar with all the rules, our forms, regulation. Like I say, someone from Florida real estate attorney is not gonna be able to really help you here, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah. So, and what else here? Us with lender. Okay. So also basically, like I said, we have a whole team of people that we work with, right? So we can recommend competent attorneys that will be able to help.
Right, competent, responsive attorneys. Those are the key ones. And same with lenders too.
Yes.
People that we've worked with a lot over the years, that we know, they know us, we know them, we know how they work. They are responsive. They know that this is a timely process, that things have to happen quickly. So.
Yep, exactly. So, buying during COVID-19.
There we go. Buying during COVID. How's it different? Not quite business as usual, I think it's fair to say.
No, like I say, it's sometimes, it's been kind of challenging to go to open houses. I mean, there are some coming up now. I try not to go to open houses because my experience was that it's out there freezing cold and people are lining up, 20 of them, waiting outside, right? And they have 1.5 hours to squeeze 20 groups of people in there. So I often just, after the Zoom consultation with my buyers, we would select to the home that we go, and I would just make private showings. Now, my personal experience now is that some listing agents trying to, how should I say, trying to kind of reduce their time on site. So even when we call for private showing, they give us overlapping. They will be like group 3 private showing together in one time zone, and they will pace us in. Like you stay in the kitchen, you go to the bath, like upstairs, you go to the basement, and then try not to touch each other. Okay, try to stay away. So there was one time we got stuck in the bedroom waiting to get out to the hallway, and then it's just becoming very uncomfortable. Right? I mean, we're still in the middle of pandemic, right? So
we still are. That situation is still the way.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my mask. It's getting so warm, and everybody's in there. I'm like, let's get out of here, right? So it's the showing is not business as usual, right? Of course, and when they do have open houses, it's kind of crazy. So.
Yes, I think that's our experience. We've driven past homes that have open houses to see. There was a spell probably 3 weeks ago when it was very, very cold, and there's a line of people queued up outside this home,
right?
And begins to, better not to do that. Go with those private showings,
right?
Because it's by far the easiest way to do it.
Right.
You get some time in there. You're not navigating around people, which makes it very uncomfortable. And the buyer is spending time worrying about everybody else, not thinking about the home.
Right.
And that's why digital private showings really the preferred way of doing it.
Yeah, and also that some of the open houses, so-called, they give you 15 minutes, right? So, and if it's a 3,000 square feet home, you have 15 minutes. You're basically running around and just not saying anything.
Right,
and be out of there, right? You cannot comfortably, have the sense of the home. You just know that you get in and you get out, basically. Right. So really not helping. Yeah. So that's tough. So having homes that have like digital, like 3D tour, really help the buyers to at least see that first before they decide they want to go see the home. It's something that a digital media is really key. Okay.
And I think this is the big difference between pre-COVID and today is that today's buyers, previously you would go to an open house, well, why not? Let's just go and do some, wasn't quite a social thing, but you would go to an open house even if the home maybe wasn't going to meet your needs.
Right.
Today, buyers looking at anything and everything they can beforehand and then deciding which home to go look at. Being very choosy about which home to go and look at.
Right.
That's, I think, the big difference between what we've seen previously and where we are right now. Just looking very closely, yes, this one ticks my boxes. Right, let's organize that private showing. Whereas before they would just go to the open house anyway, just go and take a look just to see what it looked like.
Right.
So that's kind of changing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So the showings are a bit, that's why we do a lot of Zoom calls before we go out. We say, okay, let's just kind of pick and choose the top 3. If there are 3 to see, last weekend luckily we had 3 to see. So let's just kind of pick the 3 that we really want to see. Okay, so you don't get fatigued, and then you can really go and see the home. Yeah,
and let you as a buyer's agent walking them through the pluses and minuses of each of those homes.
Right.
Floor plans, if there's a 3D tour, looking at the photographs, gleaning a lot. We look at a lot of real estate photographs, as you can imagine.
Yes.
We can glean a lot from the photographs, not everything, but a lot.
Yeah.
And certainly from the floor plan, kind of talking a potential buyer through that, given that the buyer perhaps won't have seen floor plans before.
Right.
Yes, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. Do you realize you could expand here? You realize there's only 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on this level? Oh yes, because the other 2 bedrooms are downstairs.
Right.
Does that work for you? All those kind of things is what you can bring out. One of the good things, I think, of everybody now understanding how to use Zoom is that you can have that conversation in the comfort of your own home, in the evening after work, as opposed to rushed while you're
on the weekend trying to go see the home. So I
yeah.
think in that sense, it's really making the buying process a little bit, smarter.
Yeah,
really
part
easy.
of it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mentioned this before. Last year, appraisals were drive-by appraisals, certainly early part of 2020, and that did lead to the potential for lower appraisals.
Right.
What we definitely saw was slower loan processing, because existing homeowners were looking at refinancing. Home buyers, a lot of them, were looking to finance, and that overwhelmed the bank, the whole lending process. I think certainly at the beginning of 2020. Got better as we moved forward, but everybody was working out how to work, how the loan processors were working out how to work from home. There were a lot more loans to process, and so we definitely saw the situation when we had slower loan processing.
Yes.
Closings delayed.
And less, there are less appraisers that were, appraisers are overwhelmed, actually. So to order appraisal, it takes a longer time.
Yep.
And then the appraiser could come from other towns that they don't even know this town. So they come and try to appraise, and sometimes they just give a not very meaningful value. They just, like you say, drive by. They don't know the town well, So
maybe they don't talk to the listing agent to find out how many offers there were, and so on. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a quick summary of what's virtual home buying in 2021 now, of course.
Yeah. Well, like I say, we did that virtual consultation. We've been doing that now, starting the beginning of the pandemic. When we started
March last year, I guess.
Yeah, March, and then we find that's really helpful, and looking at all the digital marketing, like our team has a lot of, which is really lovely. Now, I have this high expectation of all the listings have 3D tour, and unfortunately they don't. About
20% based on the work that I looked at how many does. It's about 20%, which is, I have to say, 2019, it was about 4%.
Yeah.
So we saw a lot more in 2020, but nowhere near as many as we expect. And certainly is nowhere near as many as the buyers anticipate.
Right. Yeah. We'd like to have more. So agents out there, please put more out.
Put more out there. Right.
And now, of course, electronic signature. All the documents are e-documents, and the inspections now are, some of them are virtual. Depends on how the inspectors are feeling. And of course, we love our buying dashboard, right? That's something that Marcus.
It's an app that we have that allows us to communicate with the buyers in terms of what's happening when, how far along the process we are. What are the key dates that have to be met? So it's a way of we're here obviously to talk, but most people are much more okay with an app. And so we put together this app which gives you that kind of insight in terms of how this process is going, how far along you are, what are the key dates that come next. So that's the buying dashboard that we put together last year. Actually, we rolled it out at the early part of last year, and we're continually updating it. We've got some more updates coming in the next couple of weeks, in fact. So
That's nice. And the showing restriction, I think, is because the fact that, sometimes if the homes are still occupied, right? So like last week I had a home that they only allowed 1.5 hours on Saturday and Sunday to see homes.
wow.
So it was very challenging
Yep.
to try to see that home. That's the showing restrictions. So if they have, a 3D tour, we could have been able to
Right.
walk around.
Yeah.
That would have been very helpful.
Yeah.
And so that's,
Beforehand.
beforehand.
So we can do everything virtually. Everything's been worked out. There were some questions at the beginning of March, April timeframe of 2020, how will we do things? But now we've been through this for the best part of about 9 months or so. Literally, this whole process has been worked out, I think, very well.
Yep.
And there aren't, with the exception perhaps of slow financing, because of so many loans, this works very well. Different to what we've been doing in the past, but that's okay. But certainly everything's been kind of worked out, I think, today in terms of how this will change. Now, it may shift a little bit in 2021, perhaps more open houses, but I have an inkling that it will be not in early 2021, it'll be much later. It'll be the fall before everybody becomes much more comfortable being in a somewhat crowded environment. And
Right.
so what we've talked about today will really be, for the majority of home buyers in 2021, the way it will occur.
Yes, yeah.
And to finally, I guess, what is our commitment to you, the buyers out there?
Well, I think, I want to say, I think I want to emphasize enough that, our commitment is, my commitment, also our team's commitment is that I take this role very seriously, okay, and with the heart is that it's important because it's such a big investment of everybody's life. I mean, this is by far I don't know about
the largest investment, absolutely.
The largest investment. So it's not only just an investment, but it's also for the family, right? So someone that can do this job with the highest integrity and the ethical behavior, and able to provide you data to educate you, right? To show you, to share with you what's the local market, and share with you to go through the finance options, and everything that we just talked about. And the key is to help you to create a team of people, the right professionals that work through with you. Like I said, as an agent, I'm right next to you when you started, right? To go through the process, we do the search, I arrange a showing, we evaluate the property, and then we kind of strategize offer. And when that happens, I stand in front of you to help you, represent you, to negotiate the offer on your behalf, the best terms, and try to win, establish a strong offer to help you win that home. And then, like I say, behind you to support you when we did get the offer, and we need to go through that process, and help
bringing
you,
that extended team
together, and then move, this through a I wouldn't say smooth, but at least, less bumpy road, right?
Yep.
So that by the time that we go through this process, you are at the destination that you want to be, right? So we don't take the wrong turn, or we don't drive down the wrong road, and not have the attorney call back and everything kind of start falling apart. So coordinated activity through the closing, of course, but that's all a lot behind the scenes, like calling the lender, trying to make sure the attorney is doing what they're supposed to do. So it is not about, to me, it's not about selling. It's to me just about helping, helping my clients, my people, my friends. I always call them my people, because when I start working with them, they become my people, and I'm very, I'm very protective of them. I want to make sure that they get the home that fits their needs at the best price, and that they are understanding that this is what's the right for them.
Yep.
So that's my commitment, our team's commitment as well. I think our team is the same way.
Yep, so, everybody in the team.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we are. That's it. That's our Buyers Masterclass. Thank you for watching.
Yes.
So, and if you have any questions, please reach out to Wenjen.
Yes. You have my information somewhere, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. It'll all be there. And so.
Yeah, I'm only one phone call away.
So. There we go. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
And I'll say goodbye and good night.
Bye.
Bye.